Hello everyone, welcome back to the Platform Podcast. Today we've got a very special guest, a good friend of mine, the head coach of Rio Grande rugby team, Adrian Pilkington. How's it going, mate?
Good, mate. Cheers. Thanks a million for having me on, Will. Looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, rugby, up and coming sport in the States, one of the biggest sports that's in New Zealand and in Ireland, both of our respective hometown countries. How does an Irish rugby coach end up in Rio Grande coaching their rugby team? Tell us a bit of a backstory about how you've ended up where you are.
Sweet, yeah. It's been a bit of a journey, all right, but can we get through it and a little bit of a general knowledge, general gist of it. Obviously back home, Irish man, grew up on the West Coast, so originally a Clare man, now live in Galway with my wife and kids, happy out. Spent best part of my life back home, 21 years I was in the military. So served as a military man for them. Obviously retired with my state pension. I was like, let's relax, take it easy. That was never going to happen. So it wasn't. So nice and gentle. Obviously, a big passion of mine was obviously playing rugby through growing up. Played it up until got very bad injury and stuff like that. And then I decided to go down the route of strength and conditioning and bits and pieces like that. During my time at home, I'd spent about 10, 11 years with my club team, senior team Galway Corinthians in the All-Ireland League as the head of strength and conditioning with them. In that time, I got to kind of know a few people in bits and pieces. I ended up working in terms of Connacht Rugby, the pro team in Ireland, so kind of lucky enough to get in with them as kind of a regional S&C coach, so kind of every summer involved in their programs from like U16, 17s, 18s, 19s and stuff. The funny story how I got into that, but that's a different matter. We'll go down to that road, but kind of spawned from there, kind of strength and conditioning work, doing lots of bits and pieces around the place, hurling teams and all that kind of stuff. Obviously joined LinkedIn, I went back to school, done my sports science degree in bits and pieces. Obviously, as part of this course, we had to join LinkedIn. One of these things you join and you think, nothing's ever going to come out of this kind of thing or whatever. But finishing up my degree, obviously, was retiring, and then it was a case, okay, what am I going to do when I retire next? And obviously, this post arrived up on LinkedIn. I got a private message to know how's it going. Would you be interested in, brand new rugby program setting up in the States? Would you be interested in being the head of strength and conditioning for it? Blah blah blah. I was like, whoa, hey, okay, this sounds promising. Be nice and interest. So had a bit more of a chat into it, spoke with the head coach that was here in bits and pieces, and we kind of pieced it together. Obviously the big discussion was with the wife and kids and going, do you mind me heading off and leaving you for a couple of months at a time and bits and pieces and stuff. But obviously they were happy enough with it, well, to a degree, there's always the odd day and stuff. But took the job, came over here in August 2021, was the head of S&C for the rugby program. Obviously when we started out, it was surreal, the kind of season we had in terms of where we started off, 10-1 season. You're one game away from making national championships in your first year. It's like the stuff of dreams. You go unbeaten in your conference, and it's like, oh my god, what's going on here? This kind of stuff. Just kind of went through from there. A few bits and pieces happened. Obviously, the previous coach he was let go from the position, and I was just the fortunate guy in the position.
And the right spot, the right time.
Yeah, that was it. And obviously, June last year, 22, I got a phone call I was home in Ireland visiting the wife and kids for summer, and got a phone call from the school to know I'd be interested in full-time head coaching position. So, obviously wasn't something I'd come over here to do, but look, hey, we'll take it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that's a great story. 100%. But, for a lot of our listeners, are New Zealand-based. Rugby is a huge part of New Zealand culture, a huge part of, how we live. But there's not a lot of kind of idea around how the structure of college rugby is. Would you mind kind of telling us about how it's structured? Is it Division 1, Division 1A? It's a bit different to your basketball and your soccer and those sports. Would you mind touching on that for us?
Of course, yeah, 100%. Obviously, I was trying to get used to all this kind of stuff. There's probably because of the so vast majority of the states, the different states, they've all got their own different conferences and bits and pieces. But from my understanding, what I'm gathering from it, Will, is you've got Division 1, there's Division 1A, Division 2, and then small college. That's kind of the divisions that they work off in terms of that. We started out as small college, obviously, kind of didn't know where we were going to go in terms of recruitment and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And now we've been jumped up to Division 1. So when people talk about Division 1 programs, they taught you, the big ones like your Life and your Linden one, they're the more established ones are there. But there is other Division 1 teams out there. You got Thomas More, you got Adrian, obviously we've got us, all that kind of stuff. So there is divisions. you could end up going to somewhere in the West Coast and it could be like Division 1, could be a totally different meaning to them and that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And then obviously when you have the two different East and West Coast, we play 15s in the fall, they play 15s in the spring. It just kind of crosses over and stuff like that. But that's kind of a gist of the divisions, where it is, from my understanding to a degree. I'm still getting used
to it. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. You know, we've got a bunch of rugby kids that are actually looking into this pathway now, because, you know, it's always kind of, rugby's a professional game. You know, you can put it like that. You play your high school rugby and then you look at getting a professional contract. In New Zealand, you know, it's either trying to make that ITM Cup or that Super Rugby, or, you know, in the UK, I'm sure it's the same. You know, so there's this pathway that is kind of opened up. So, you know, it's almost, it's providing different options, right?
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about college. So kind of tell us a bit about, you know, what a day in the life of a college rugby player looks like compared to, say, you know, someone trying to crack the professional scene.
Yeah, well, we point out over here, like, obviously from the background me and my assistant coach Baden have, he's obviously South African, so he's been through Stellenbosch University and kind of that kind of stuff. We kind of trying to put a high performance stamp on where we are. So like a typical day for a Rio rugby player is, we do all the rest. So first thing to do is when they wake up, they got to log their wellness. So they got a wellness check to do. Basically, a couple of questions: how have you slept? How was your stress levels? All that kind of stuff. So based on that comes into my computer here in the office. I'm the first one in the door in the morning. Comes into my office. I'll gauge their training schedule off of that for the day. In they come, 6:15 a.m. They've got prehab work to do. They got CMJ jumps, all that kind of stuff, monitoring fatigue and bits and pieces. So we kind of look after them before they actually get into the actual weight room. We're in the weight room then from like 6:30 a.m. till around 7:45, doing all that kind of stuff. You know, weights, gets full on strength and conditioning. It's great. Finish that then. It's breakfast time. We head over to the cafeteria. They'll have breakfast together. Usually, some kids, it depends on their schedule. Your classes might start around 8:30. Other kids might be fortunate enough, they might get 10:30, 11 o'clock starts. Other kids mightn't have any classes at all during the day. That's just kind of how it works. So academics kind of kicks in from like 8:30 to around 3 o'clock, give or take on your schedule. Once that's done, then we kind of chat with them. We have kind of a little squad meeting before we start, just to explain today's session, what we're doing, what the outcomes we want out of goals and bits and pieces. We get on the pitch then for around 4, half 4, depending on the day that we have. If it's a Monday, it's a conditioning and skills session. We do it literally lasts 45, 50 minutes, jumping between conditioning work, skills work, conditioning work, skills work. Then it could be a case of we get dinner afterwards. We may have a forwards meeting or maybe a backs meeting, whatever it is, that kind of stuff. And then we just go from there, kind of get to relax, get to do the homework and stuff like that. Typically, and just get the week follows on from that. So we train twice a day, Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday's their day off, per se. We have a pool here in the school, so we use that like as a pool recovery session for the squad. We also host study tables then at night in terms of academics. Guys sit in the classroom with me, no phones, all that kind of stuff. You know, keep an eye on do their homework every now and again. So we do.
Yeah.
Thursday then back in twice a day again, train again. Obviously gym in the morning, pitch in the evening. Fridays then is dictated by how our weekend is, whether we have a game, whether or not we could be travelling to a game. So obviously being full varsity, we have the luxury of going, staying in hotels and all that kind of stuff the day before if we need to. Saturday play the game home or away, and then Sunday then back in pool recovery session and video review session on a Sunday night. So we pretty much
So it is very much a professional rugby lifestyle.
Pretty much to a degree.
Except you're getting a degree out of it at the end, right?
That's the beauty about it. Like, it's, you know, you get both, best of both worlds. Like, you're getting a high performance training environment, but you're also getting to get an education out of it at the same time.
Because I guess a big thing for athletes that, you know, a lot of them struggle to realize is, you know, you've only got this window. You've only got a certain window of your kind of athletic career, right? Mm-hmm. And if you just jump straight into the pros, you're almost leaving yourself with no backup plan.
Oh, massively.
You know, unless you look into the coaching or any of that. But, you know, if you can come out of a 4-year degree, you know, and playing sport and looking to get a pro contract, you know, you've just kind of set yourself up, I feel.
Oh, massively.
Which is why we're encouraging all of our, you know, these rugby boys to actually, you know, look down this pathway. Yes, the financial gains might not be there for the first 4 years, but in the long term, you know, it's going to pay itself off.
A short-term hit for a long-term gain.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
That's it.
I guess I've done a lot of comparing New Zealand and you know, the UK to American rugby, but you can actually switch that around and compare, the American rugby to how we play it back home. How have you found adjusting to that? Because obviously the States are still developing their kind of their rugby game. How have you found adjusting to that?
I suppose the biggest thing is trying to, obviously back home in Ireland and New Zealand, like everyone, since they're, they get a ruggy ball in their hand, they're 6 years of age. What do you want to do? I want to play for Munster. I want to play for Canterbury. I want to be that kind of thing. What's the next step after that? I want to play for the All Blacks. I want to play for Ireland. So there's the pathway is always kind of true for that. Whereas kind of kids here in America, it's like, not saying it's for everybody, but some kids could have literally got through like 3rd grade in high school and it's like, I'm an American football player who's like, I'm not really making a football. Oh, what's this game over here? I can pick it up and play it. So there's no real kind of rugby IQ gone back into it. It's the biggest part I found is the rugby IQ. That is the massive.
Yeah.
In terms of.
And I can actually compare that to my own personal experience. I play lacrosse, right? And I've been playing rugby since I was 5 years old. Since I could run around, I've had a rugby ball in my hands. I picked lacrosse up when I was around 14. And then I was fortunate enough to get to the States to play lacrosse. And it was just a completely different game, considering these guys in my team in the States they've all had a stick in their hand since they were 5.
Yeah.
It shows that kind of, you've got to start young, I guess.
Oh, yeah, definitely is. And now don't get me wrong, there's guys here that, like, we've literally physical athletes like that can take up the game with specimens and stuff, some of them, like, but it's just, like I said, the biggest thing I'd say, Will, is that rugby IQ. That outside of America. Now, there is Americans that have it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to, paint them all with the run brush. But from my experience, what I found is that rugby IQ. It's also that kind of, like, there's a little bit of a work ethic. You know what I mean? Back home, it's like, I want to be an All Black. But they know what it takes to be an All Black. It's like, boom. Whereas you get kids here, like, they want to be a pro rugby player, but, like, we don't know what to do to be a pro rugby player. You don't have that work ethic of, like, having stuff. Like, we kind of compare it to 10% of what you do is on the pitch. It's the 90% you do when the camera's not on you. That's the stuff that's going to make you get to the top. That's going to separate you from the good from the great. Like, and a lot of these kids, from my experience, I'm finding don't really understand that. You know what I mean? It's like
you got to sit them in front of the new Richard McCaw movie.
Yeah, that's kind of it, man. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Like, I want to be an All Black. Why do you want to be an All Black? Why don't you want to be a great All Black? And that's kind of it. And I think it's
to be the greatest.
They haven't been invested in the game for so long. Like I said, we've chatted before, and it's like I would sit and watch 3 or 4 or 5 Six Nations games in a row, like, and that's kind of, you get excited because Ireland are playing France.
You live and breathe rugby.
Yeah, and that's it. Whereas here it's like I'll watch it because coach has us in watching it and that kind of stuff. And then it's like, but yet, like Sunday here now is going to be like the entire world is going to stop here in America because the Super Bowl is on. Like, so it's like, oh my God, the greatest game in the world, and you're like, every player here will be able to tell you how many touchdowns Patrick Mahomes, how many yards he's running for and stuff. But yet, if I ask them about Ireland or France on Saturday, they look at me and go, I'm not too sure yet. I'll wait for the highlights to come out, kind of thing. So that's kind of it. I think, going back to your question, the biggest thing I found is just having that rugby IQ and being invested in the sport from a young age. If they were, I think they'd be a hell of a lot different around here. Yeah,
well, I mean, you've got the athletes in America, right? I've seen some of those football players firsthand. Some of them are monsters. Yeah. Like they tower over us Kiwi guys. But yeah, like you said, I guess it's that heart, and is that ticker that power that kind of is instilled in us.
Yeah.
It kind of comes with the culture, I guess. So, I mean, it's still growing. I'm sure the States will get to there at some
100%.
point.
And the fact like they get to host the World Cup in a few years' time and stuff like that, it is growing. And obviously the MLR, literally they announced yesterday a brand new team in 2024 in Florida, the Miami Sharks. So not the football team based on any given Sunday, but that can. But
and they also love their sevens, right?
Oh, sevens is like for me. I'd love if it just had a season of 15s. I would absolutely love it. But sevens rugby over here is like the biggest thing. So we're going into now.
And the US sevens team's quite good. They're quite successful, right?
Yeah, the women's team and the men's team are quite good. They're pretty decent as well. Like they're hoping to qualify for the Olympics and stuff. But there's a big fascination with sevens over here. So we're heading into a full season now of sevens. Our entire spring season, is all sevens tournaments. So we like 4 or 5 tournaments, and that's all it is. So there's no 15s. Kicking in. So
basically, so what I've kind of taken from that is that Kiwi players stand out.
Oh yeah,
noticeably.
Yeah, 100% they will.
Yeah,
but not just Kiwi players. Like they will, like any kind of international that decides to make the jump to the States is going to stand out based around their rugby IQ and that stuff that they're going to bring to the game. That's what they're going to bring. Now, like I said, you could go down the route of scholarships and go, I want to bring 20 kids, 30 kids, whatever, internationals over and flood your team with that. But how are you growing the game here in America by doing that? So what we're trying to do here in Rio is if I can get a spine of like 8 to 10 internationals to join the crew that I have, that's kind of what we want. We're not going to build our team around internationals. Because at the end of the day, those boys will fly home tomorrow. This isn't for me, I'm going home. What are you left with? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's actually very similar to the situation I've got at the moment with lacrosse in New Zealand. We're obviously going to the World Cup in June. And, we've got a few Americans that, have New Zealand passports or have New Zealand parents. And yes, they can come back and dominate in New Zealand and, take all of our spots going to the World Cup. But, it's that homegrown talent that needs to grow.
Yeah.
And they're invaluable, right? Invaluable to actually get that growth going because of the things they can teach and the skills they can share. But it's got to come from that homegrown development.
Big time, 100% they have to. And I think there's probably a lot of political issues going on with US rugby at the moment and stuff like that need to be sorted out. But I think once they get them things kind of sorted out, I think rugby here will actually go massive. Obviously, looking forward to we have a pro team starting now in Chicago. About 6 hours up from us. I'm kind of going to follow them for this season, see how they get on, see how they go. Obviously, having a mate from Galway to sign for them as well kind of helps too. So we're going to have a look at it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about Rio. Obviously, you've got your rugby program, and you've mentioned about your training and all that kind of jazz. But there's a lot more that comes into it. Talk us through the facilities, kind of the living situations, the food. All of these things that are very important when it comes to selecting a school.
Oh, 100%. We're in a rural environment. We're southeast Ohio. We're about 2 hours southeast of Columbus Airport, which is the main airport. Small rural town/village, depending on who you talk to. The people that live here say town. I'm kind of like a village, but that's just because I know from Ireland. Campus is pretty small enough. You'd orientate it within an hour to know where you're going. It's a small enough kind of family vibe feel to it. Everybody kind of knows everybody. Obviously being the rugby players, we're the only contact sport. We don't have American football, so the rugby boys stand out an absolute mile going around the place. So, plus they always go around in packs of like 4s or 5s and throwing a rugby ball in bits and pieces, so they're around the place.
500 kilos walking around.
Yeah, that's it, to a degree. But no, it's like I said, we've all the facilities as every other university has. Fitness centre, swimming pool, all that kind of stuff to do. It helps us out, and from an athletic point of view. Academic wise, we offer student success coaches that look after your schedules and stuff like that. Libraries, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty decent in terms of like accommodation wise. Dorm room accommodation. For me, I always get my athletes to share together. From a rugby point of view, I kind of I push that with the director of housing. I'm like, it makes sense in terms of a schedule wise. Like there's no point.
Yeah, 100%.
No point putting an esports kid with a rugby player, esports kid, like he comes alive at 1 o'clock in the morning till about 6, playing esports. We're getting up to go training. And then obviously cafeteria wise we offer 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch and dinner. It's all you can eat buffet. So you just go in, swipe the student card, you sit there for an hour and a half and get as much as you like to eat, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've settled in pretty okay over here. Obviously it'd be nice if the wife and kids were with me, but we can't have everything to a degree.
No.
But yeah, nice little family feel to it. There's local coffee shops around the place. We've got like Family Dollar, we've got McDonald's, we've got Subway. Taco Bell is opening here next week, so another restaurant to add to. We got pizza place.
I'm sure your boys will love that.
Oh yeah, they can't wait. Some of them can't wait to get there. But yeah, it's pretty decent enough. It's that kind of stuff. 20 minutes down the road from us, then we've got a town called Gallipolis. Got the bowling alleys. It's got like a Walmart. It's got all that kind of stuff. We go there and we do a lot of social activities as a group on a Saturday or Sunday as a rugby team. We'll head off. We'll go bowling. A lot of hills and stuff around here, so we head off like hill walking and all that kind of stuff around us. There's some lovely parks within an hour of the place that we head off and do bits and pieces. So kind of active recovery days on a Sunday, we might head off as a group and go for a hike and bits and pieces and stuff like that. So
because I guess that's a big thing that a lot of potential student athletes kind of are worried about or concerned about when they're looking at shipping halfway across the world to another country is kind of that being alone. I know when I did it, I was worried. I was like, what if I don't get along with my teammates? But it sounds like you very much enforce kind of like a family.
Oh,
you know, that rugby team becomes a second family.
Yeah, 100%. Like we don't enforce it. It just kind of happens. Like we had a kid join us in the spring. Carl Leon came in, fresh kid in from Kansas City. Like was like, very nervous kind of the first day. Kind of went to the cafeteria, kind of sat on his own just to a degree, and he literally, biggest guy we have, Patrick. Like he's about 6'5", kind of just literally went over, picked up his chair with him on it, and dropped him back in the chair. Like, you're part of the crew, man. Don't be sitting on your own when you're coming from me. So that kind of stuff. It's the same kind of vibe we have. Obviously, we go in the cafeteria, we'll eat, and you'll have like 10, 15 rugby guys all sitting around together. But then as soon as they leave, like the cleaner lady's like, your boys weren't here. It looks literally like they were not here. They just literally, that kind of vibe. Everybody loves them. Everybody on campus loves them. They get invited.
It is that rugby culture, right?
Yeah, I get like, the basketball team are playing, the women's or the men's team are playing. I get it, like knock on the door. Hey, your boys free tonight? Are you training? Can they come to the game? Put on a bit of a hype crowd, all this kind of stuff. They do it in a nice way. Like they're a hype crowd, but they do it in a good way and that kind of stuff. And everyone just loves them to a degree. So
I love hearing that because obviously I'm coaching the New Zealand under-18 lacrosse team, and I'm big into that rugby culture of leave the changing room better than you found it.
100%.
And so that kind of, it's nice to hear that the Americans are picking up that side of rugby as well, because you can see they often like to commercialize sport and but there is those homegrown kind of rugby values that they seem to be keeping along, which is great.
Oh no, we do, and like there is certain things that obviously you do miss from home. Like if we go to away games, you mightn't get, I'm not saying everybody again, but you mightn't get a dressing room, you mightn't get showered. Yeah. The big thing here that we like offer in Rio is like if away teams come to us, I kind of try and put on like you'd have at home. We don't have a clubhouse per se, but we have fitness center. Right, there's a locker room in there you can check. And teams, what? We've a dressing room, and then there's showers after guys when you're free and stuff, and we go for a bite to eat out, and they're looking at you going, what? And then they're asking you, do we have to? And it's all covered. Like it's just stuff that we've grown up with back home. That like the aftermath kind of culture and bits and pieces. That over here it's like they don't really have it. They look at you in shock when you kind of say, I'll give you a bit of a meal before you go on a 5-hour bus journey back home. Like they're kind of, it's funny, like, but it's kind of just bringing those cultures with it.
Yeah, 100%. And coming back to the rugby, the actual on-field stuff, we've been thinking about. We've actually talked about this prior. Is the kicking game?
Oh.
What's going on there? Because NFL, right? You kick on fourth down. You try to avoid kicking at all costs. But with rugby, it's a vital skill. And it's a tool that we can use to kind of get down the field and push that territory. How are your boys finding picking that up?
It's kind of something we have to ingrain them and kind of sit down with them and give them videos and kind of understand. It's that map. A rugby map of positions on the pitch and understand that when to kick, when not to kick. The biggest thing we have, like the issue we've had, is guys, everything is like a penalty. You got to understand, kick your points. Points are going to win you games. That kind of stuff. So like if we're in a kickable position, let's kick the penalty. Oh, coach, tap and go, because the mentality, like I said, is going back to high school. Is where like give the ball to the biggest guy and we'll score and we'll do this. It's just like they just want to keep playing, contact.
Tap and goes, yeah.
Tap and go. Let's relax. Let's kick a penalty. We can kick if it's in kickable position. Let's kick 3 points.
You get the ball back.
100%. Like 3 points, could be the difference between winning and losing the game. So we try and encourage to a degree. We work on that. Look, there's a time and a place where we're going to kick it. There's a time and a place where we're going to tap and go it. That kind of stuff. And
then I guess from a strength and conditioning perspective, you've obviously got a lot of footballers or ex football players coming in. And rugby and football, although they kind of, I guess, look similar, from a strength and conditioning standpoint, completely different games.
Yeah.
You've got 20 seconds on, a minute off, whereas rugby is 40 minutes straight blast. How have you found from a, obviously your strength and conditioning experience, trying to teach them, those different skills and those different energy systems that they have to use?
Yeah, I suppose it's difficult, we've all seen like the YouTube videos of American footballers training in the gym and stuff. Excuse me, but it's getting my boys had to flip that mentality of boys, less is more, and they're going, what? Like the first day we went in the gym and you get a kid like, oh coach, I was in football and squatting 400 pounds or whatever, and I'm like, great, squat the bar for me, and he's looking at you going, what? So you get him to squat the bar, and then it's like you can't squat, and he's like, oh, but I can. You're like, you can't. If I put 400 pounds on your back now, it's going to break. So it's just about like getting them into the mentality of, look, functionally move first, and then we start increasing weight and stuff. Compared to like I'm not saying again, I'm not knocking the whole football culture in bits and pieces, but just stuff that I've seen, like as an SU, you kind of look at it and cringe and go, oh my god, why are you making a kid do that? Why are we doing this to a degree? You know, like you said, flipping the energy systems, getting footballers to understand that you play for 40 minutes. You know, I get questions of asking me, how does Tyke Furlong, like the size of him, how does he last 40 minutes of a game? I'm like, because he's conditioned. He's fit. He's conditioned. You know.
Yeah. I know. My oldest brother. He was a front rower. He's 6'5", 130 kgs. But that boy can just run. He can just run. It's not fast.
Yeah.
You know, he's not doing breakaways, but it's a motor. Yeah. You know, it's like a big diesel engine, just keeps going.
That's it. Yeah, and then there's other little bits and pieces that we do in terms of training, like prehab stuff. Looking at you in the morning, like, have you gone through your prehab before you start actually lifting? They're looking at what? We've a whole round of exercise you got to get through, all that kind of stuff. You know, monitoring their injuries, like, you know, coach, why do you care how much I sleep? You know, why do you care what I eat? Why do you care how many hours? You know, stress levels, because all this stuff builds up, and it's just that kind of mentality of like they've never had someone kind of monitoring practically everything they do to a degree, and it's just putting them.
And that's awesome, because I guess, you know, that would be a lot of concerns when people go through the recruiting process. Is, you know, maybe Rio, you know, you've only been a rugby program for 3 years now, but you're actually you take the time, and this is obviously something that you've instilled yourself. Is, you know, that you got to treat it like you have been a program for 20 years, that you can compete with these kind of best schools on the table, and the only way you're going to do that is by treating it how they treat it.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
Be better than your opposition.
Exactly, and that's it. And literally, like everything we try and do and try and implement with the players is like literally trying to make them that better player. You know, whether it's you know, they come here, they do their thing for 4 years. If they get the degree, great. If they become better rugby players, even better. But for me, it's about the academics, but making them a better rugby player and understanding, you know, like a student athlete is going to be under a massive amount of stress, 100%. You know, we've all been there in terms of exams and bits and pieces. And the thing is, you can't stress an already stressed body, you know, in terms of that. So in terms of, for me in S&C, when a kid tells me like, why do you want to know my stress levels? Well, I need to know, like, if you're coming into the gym and you're already stressed, can I load you up and make, otherwise, you know, your body's going to break. And they're looking at you going, no, nothing's going on, coach, I feel great. But you're like, I know what's going to happen in the next day or two if we load you up. So it's just having that mentality. And I think the boys, it was a slow start, getting them to buy into it and kind of, why you not letting me train, coach? I feel fine, I feel good. Yeah, but your dad is telling me that something's going to happen here, so we're just going to ease you back. You know, I need you fit on Saturday, I don't need you fit on Tuesday. You know, that kind of thing. And it's just that mentality of kind of, you know, the biggest thing I've kind of found, my boys get 2 days off in a week from training. It's a little bit unheard of in terms of like some coaches, 2 days off.
Yeah.
I'm like, your body needs a break. They have to, you know,
100%.
have to recover. That kind of stuff. I suppose it's just something I've grown up with in that kind of environment I've been in and just carried it through. It's worked where I've seen where it worked.
And I guess also, you know, going into it, you know, although it is, you know, sad that you can't have your family with you, it means you have a lot more time to actually dedicate to your boys, dedicate to your team, and dedicate to your players. So, you know, compared to other schools, I guess, you know, there's a plus there. You know, your coach is going to be on your neck 24/7. He knows, you know, you must have quite a personal relationship with a lot of your players.
Oh yeah, the biggest, like I've said to my boys, like from day one since they arrived in, is like, I have an open door policy. 100% my door is literally to the office is open 24/7, 100%. And like my phone is there. I live on campus, which kind of helps. Maybe it might help, might hinder, I don't know. So we're practically, you know, I'm in their kind of pockets and they're in mine at the same. There is times where, listen, I'll go into the cafeteria, I'll sit to the opposite end and they'll sit in there and we kind of just, there's the time where you need a break.
Yeah.
But we have a very good relationship. And the same thing, like I brought in my assistant Baden, he just clicked from day one. Like, you know, you kind of going recruiting for an assistant and it's like, is it going to work, is it not? He's come in and he's been like an absolute godsend. He drags me out of the office at night time, you know. I could sit here like, I need recruitment. He was like, come away, that kind of stuff. And the boys have taken him as well. 100%, but we do have a very good personal relationship. I'm here, I'm an international, I'm away from home. I understand, you know, the pressures that come up being away from home. We've got students from Hawaii, you know, California, that kind of stuff. We've got kids from England, France. I understand what they're going through being away from home, being away from family. So my door will just literally, come chat, boys, if you have an issue, anything, come and talk to me. You know, if it's something seriously, we'll do our best to get you home as much as we can, but we're that family environment. Look, at the end of the day, I kind of see myself like I have a duty of care to these kids no matter what. I'm their coach, you know what I mean. And if things are happening to these kids, I got to make sure that they're looked after 100%. So whether it means a kid comes from New Zealand and he's got to get home for something, I'll do everything in my power to have him literally out of here within the next day as much as we can, that kind of stuff. So I do understand all that kind of stuff, you know, being away from home as well.
100%. 100%. Well, I guess on that note, if anyone does want to, you know, reach out to learn more about Rio Grande and Coach Adrian's program, you know, let us know. Hit us up on Instagram, Platform Sports Management. We'll put you in touch with him, and you know, we can go from there. You know, rugby is the new wave in the States. You know, so and we've got the talent here, so why not share it with the world? I guess
100% the talent's in New Zealand. It's there, and it's here in America as well. Just that, you know, wherever it goes, we'll take them.
100%.
So it is.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you, Coach. We could sit and chat rugby all day, but you know we've got a busy life, so it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure we'll be in touch and sending you some pretty class players.
Awesome, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you. Cheers. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Cheers, buddy. Bye bye.